continues to shower Ani with attention, insisting on spending more time with her outside the club. His carefree attitude and wealth create an exciting contrast to Ani's life, which is built on survival and resilience. Against her better judgment, she agrees to spend more time with him, intrigued by his world of luxury and indulgence. As their relationship develops, Ani finds herself drawn to Vanya's unfiltered enthusiasm and boyish infatuation. He takes her to the most exclusive places, treating her to lavish dinners, shopping sprees, and experiences she could never afford on her own. Their chemistry is undeniable, and despite her initial reservations, Ani begins to fall for him. The dynamic between them is intoxicating. She's street-smart and resourceful, while he's reckless and privileged. Their connection deepens as they spend nights talking about their vastly different worlds. Ani, though flattered, is always aware of the vast gap between them. She knows men like Vanya come from a life where money fixes everything, while she has had to fight for every bit of stability she has. But for the first time, she allows herself to indulge in the possibility that someone like Vanya could truly care for her beyond the transactional nature of her job. Ani's instincts warn her that this fairy tale might be too good to last, but when Vanya impulsively proposes marriage in a drunken moment of excitement, she hesitates only briefly before saying yes. The spontaneity of it all is thrilling. Ani has spent her life working hard for every little gain, but now, here is a shortcut to a completely different future. They head to Las Vegas and tie the knot in a quick, over-the-top ceremony, fueled by champagne and adrenaline. For Vanya, the marriage is an act of rebellion, a fun, reckless adventure that his parents would never approve of. For Ani, it's a chance at something new, something beyond the struggle she's known her whole life. However, the weight of what they've done sets in quickly. Ani, despite her excitement, starts to question whether this was truly a path to happiness or just another fleeting thrill in Vanya's privileged life. Back in New York, news of the impulsive marriage reaches Vanya's powerful family, and their reaction is swift and merciless. His parents, who control his fortune and future, are furious. To them, Ani is nothing more than a gold digger, a woman who preyed on their naive son's recklessness. The idea that a Brooklyn stripper could become part of their dynasty is unthinkable. Ani and Vanya are confronted by his family's legal team, who deliver an ultimatum: annul the marriage, or Vanya will be cut off from the family fortune. The pressure is immense, and for the first time, Ani sees Vanya struggle between standing by her and giving in to his family's demands. The fun, spontaneous nature of their relationship is suddenly under siege by the crushing weight of reality. Vanya, who has never faced real consequences in his life, starts to waver. His parents pull every string to manipulate him, reminding him that without them, his luxurious life will disappear overnight. Despite his insistence that he loves Ani, the thought of losing his fortune shakes him. Ani had been prepared for a fight. She knew Vanya's family wouldn't approve, but she wasn't prepared for how quickly he would crumble under the pressure. When Vanya starts to distance himself, avoiding tough conversations and leaning on his family's resources, Ani's heart sinks. She confronts him, demanding to know whether he's going to stand by their marriage or let his parents dictate his future. Vanya, overwhelmed and conflicted, fails to give her a straight answer. His hesitation speaks louder than words. Despite his grand promises and gestures of love, when faced with the choice between Ani and his fortune, he is unable to make the sacrifice. Ani feels the sting of betrayal. She had allowed herself to believe, even for a moment, that she could escape her reality and build something with Vanya. But now, faced with the harsh truth, she realizes that his love, though intense, was never strong enough to withstand the real-world pressures they were up against. Heartbroken and furious, Ani makes the painful decision to walk away before he can officially end things himself. She refuses to beg for a place in a world that doesn't want her. Vanya, despite his internal turmoil, lets her go, too weak to fight for her against his family's will. As Ani leaves, she returns to Brooklyn, back to the life she tried to escape. Ani's world collapses as the weight of betrayal and shattered dreams bears down on her. She had believed in Vanya's love, had allowed herself to be swept away by the promise of a life far removed from the struggles she had always known. But now, faced with the reality of his hesitation and the overwhelming influence of his family, she feels lost and desperate. With nowhere else to turn, Ani seeks solace in her old friend Igor. Unlike Vanya's world of excess and privilege, Igor represents familiarity, a reminder of the person she was before all of this. He listens without judgment as she vents her frustrations, offering quiet support in her moment of turmoil. In his presence, Ani finds a fleeting sense of stability, but she knows deep down that comfort alone won't fix the mess she's in. Determined to get answers, Ani forces a confrontation with Vanya. She needs to hear it from him directly, why he failed to stand up for their love, why he let his family dictate his life. Their conversation quickly escalates into a heated argument. Ani, raw with emotion, lays everything bare, demanding honesty. Vanya, torn between love and duty, struggles to articulate his feelings. He claims to have wanted a future with her, but admits he isn't strong enough to defy his family's expectations. This confession cuts Ani deeper than she expected. She had braced herself for lies or empty reassurances, but the truth that he loves her yet still won't fight for her hurts the most. The confrontation exposes the fragility of their relationship, revealing that it was built more on passion than a foundation strong enough to withstand reality. As the dust settles from their explosive argument, Ani comes to a painful realization: there is no salvaging this. Their relationship, as intense as it was, had been doomed from the start. The social divide between them was too vast, and Vanya's fear of losing his privileged life was stronger than his love for her. With a heavy heart, Ani agrees to annul the marriage. It is a symbolic gesture, one that marks not just the legal end of their brief union, but also the emotional closure she needs to move forward. There is no drawn-out farewell, no final moment of passion to soften the blow. Instead, there is only the stark reality of their failed love story, leaving Ani to pick up the pieces alone. Leaving behind the remnants of her shattered dream, Ani returns to Brooklyn. The streets, once suffocating and dull compared to the luxury she had experienced with Vanya, now feel like both a prison and a refuge. Brooklyn is home, it always has been, but stepping back into her old life feels like admitting defeat. She moves through the days in a daze, haunted by what could have been. The lavish parties, the beautiful clothes, the sense of security that came with being Vanya's wife, it's all gone. And yet, amid the heartbreak, there is also a strange sense of relief. No more pretending. No more trying to fit into a world that never truly accepted her. Alone in her apartment, Ani reflects on her choices. For the first time, she acknowledges a pattern in her life, using relationships as a means of escape. She had clung to Vanya not just because she loved him, but because he represented a way out, a shortcut to something better. It is a hard truth to swallow, but necessary. She realizes that relying on others to rescue her from her circumstances will only lead to disappointment. The only way to truly change her life is to take control of it herself. Determined not to let this setback define her, Ani begins to reconnect with her roots. With a newfound sense of purpose, Ani takes concrete steps toward independence. She refuses to be defined by her past mistakes or by the dreams that didn't come true. Instead of seeking another escape, she faces her reality head-on. She starts saving money, setting realistic goals, and making decisions that will benefit her in the long run. It is not an overnight transformation, and there are still moments of doubt and fear, but this time, Ani is committed to standing on her own 2 feet. Facing reality is not easy. She is confronted with the consequences of her past choices, the financial instability, the fractured relationships, the emotional wounds that still need healing. But instead of running from these hardships, she acknowledges them. She comes to terms with the societal structures that influence her, recognizing how women like her are often forced to navigate a world that doesn't always offer fair opportunities. Instead of letting these realizations discourage her, she uses them as motivation to push forward. But even the strongest people have moments of weakness. In a deeply emotional moment, Ani finally allows herself to break down. All the pain, the anger, the regret, it all comes pouring out in a raw, vulnerable moment of release. She cries for the love she lost, for the dreams that didn't materialize, for the version of herself that she had let go of in pursuit of something that was never truly hers. And in that breakdown, there is healing. She gives herself permission to grieve, to feel, to be human. The film concludes with Ani standing at the crossroads of her life. There is no grand resolution, no magical fix that erases all her struggles. But there is something more powerful: acceptance. She embraces her new path, not because it is easy, but because it is hers. There is a quiet strength in her final moments on screen, a sense that she has finally taken ownership of her own story.